Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Harry Potter Theory. In this video, we're going to be discussing the Hand of Glory, a magical artifact associated with the dark arts that shows up a couple of times throughout the Harry Potter series. But before we get to its role within the world of Harry Potter, let's take a look at the myth and folklore behind this dark piece of magic. Yes, that's right. Although perhaps not the most well-known magical item, the Hand of Glory is not exclusive to the Harry Potter series. In fact, its history in folklore and literature dates back hundreds of years, establishing a reputation for itself in an extensive collection of literary work long before J.K. Rowling chose to incorporate it in the wizarding world of Harry Potter. So, when exactly did the Hand of Glory begin to appear in literature? The answer to that is, well, a bit complicated. You see, we know that it first made its appearance in various pieces of folklore across Europe, but the issue is that, by definition, folklore is defined as traditional beliefs, customs, and stories of a community, passed through the generations by word of mouth. So, it would be quite impossible to put an exact date on when the myths and legends of the Hand of Glory first appeared. What we do know, however, is that the term Hand of Glory derives from the French phrase main de gloire, which directly translated means, you guessed it, Hand of Glory. Main de gloire is said to be a corruption of mandragora, or mandrake, a plant that has roots which look eerily like a shriveled hand. We also know that real-life criminals and those suspected of witchcraft in the 16th and 17th centuries were accused of creating Hands of Glory to perform criminal acts. Which actually brings us to an important point. There isn't just one Hand of Glory. So referring to it as the Hand of Glory isn't technically correct. You see, since Hands of Glory could theoretically be created, there could be anywhere from 1 to several thousand in existence at any given time. Now, you may be asking yourself, well then, how exactly are Hands of Glory made? While the exact magical recipe or spell differs slightly from source to source, one of the earliest accounts in writing can be found in Petit Albert, an 18th century French grimoire, otherwise known as a textbook of magic. As I mentioned, there are various different accounts of how to create a Hand of Glory, but most sources agree that the hand must be severed from a criminal who has been hung at the gallows for his or her crimes. Some sources say that the severed hand should be the left one, while others suggest that you must cut off the hand that committed the crime in order to successfully create a Hand of Glory. For example, this would come into play if the criminal had killed someone and they had committed the murder with their right or left hand. But moving on, once severed, the hand must then be dried and pickled. After it's preserved, or mummified if you prefer, it's used as a magical source of light. The illumination is created one of two ways, either from a candle created by the fats of the dead criminal whom the hand belongs to, in which case you would use the withered hand as a candlestick holder, or by using each finger as an individual taper. Okay, so now let's get to the good stuff. What magical powers does this dark artifact possess, exactly? That's right, it's not just an elaborate flashlight. In fact, providing light is just the beginning. According to legend, a Hand of Glory was said to be able to open locked doors, render anyone its path motionless or unconscious, and provide light to only those who wield it, even in total darkness, making it the perfect dark arts object for a thief. If using a Hand of Glory where the fingers provided the light, an unlit taper would also tell you if someone in your path was awake. Quite handy if you ask me. It's also interesting to note that Hands of Glory, like many other legends from long ago, were believed to be real objects at one point in time. In fact, the Whitby Museum in Northern England has a Hand of Glory on display to this day. Throughout literature, the Hand of Glory has continued to pop up in modern storytelling, from comic books like Hellboy to popular television shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Supernatural. The Hand of Glory continues to be a favored magical trope referenced by authors and screenplay writers alike, which brings us, at last, to Harry Potter. In the series, we come across the Hand of Glory for the first time in the Chamber of Secrets at Borgin & Burke's, an antique shop in Knockturn Alley that has a bit of dodgy reputation for selling dark wizarding artifacts and dealing with questionable witches and wizards. After Harry accidentally travels to Borgin & Burke's in Knockturn Alley instead of Diagon Alley by way of Floo powder, he witnesses Draco Malfoy spot the Hand of Glory for the first time. "Ah, the Hand of Glory," said Mr. Borgin. abandoning Mr. Malfoy's list and scurrying over to Draco. Insert a candle and it gives light only to the holder. Best friend of thieves and plunderers. Your son has fine taste, sir. Draco, being a spoiled boy of 12 at the time, excitedly asks his father to purchase it for him, but Lucius Malfoy, a pureblood wizard of great hubris, quickly dismisses the idea of his son needing an item so often associated with petty thieves. And so it isn't until Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince that we see the return of a Hand of Glory, in all its, well, glory. Near the end of the 6th book, we witness Malfoy in possession of one, as he uses it to see through instant darkness powder, a magical powder imported from Peru that is resistant to most magic that would normally provide light, such as Lumos, the charm that illuminates the tip of the caster's wand. He was on his own, clutching that awful shriveled arm. His Hand of Glory, said Ron, gives light only to the holder, remember? Anyway, Ginny went on, he must have been checking whether the coast was clear to let the Death Eaters out, because the moment he saw us, he threw something into the air, and it all went pitch black. Peruvian instant darkness powder, said Ron bitterly. We tried everything. Lumos, Incendio, said Ginny. Nothing would penetrate the darkness. Obviously, Malfoy could see because of that hand thing. In many ways, I think we are meant to believe that the Hand of Glory Malfoy uses here is the same one we saw him first express interest in the Chamber of Secrets. Although it's never confirmed, the fact that Malfoy uses a pair of vanishing cabinets, one in Hogwarts linked to one in Borgin and Burke's, to get Death Eaters into Hogwarts in the 6th book suggests that he has likely also procured the hand from that same shop. There's got to be something said about customer loyalty, right? The question of when he came into possession of the Hand of Glory is a bit more difficult to pin down though. It could have been soon after he first saw it. Maybe Lucius decided the boy could use a dark arts artifact to better help Draco follow in his own sinister footsteps. Or perhaps Draco had to wait until he came into a position of more power, being chosen by the Dark Lord to murder the almighty Albus Dumbledore, for example. There seems to be a bit of confusion around this from a narrative perspective as well. You see, before we witness Draco with the Hand of Glory, Ron makes a comment quite early on in the Half-Blood Prince, before we know that Malfoy is in possession of the Hand of Glory. Maybe he's broken his Hand of Glory, said Ron vaguely, as he attempted to straighten his broomstick's bent tail twigs. Remember that shriveled up arm Malfoy had? What do you guys think? When did Malfoy come into possession of the Hand of Glory? Has he had it all along since it first caught his eye before his 2nd year at Hogwarts? Or did he finally manage to get his hands on it because he needed it to carry out his assassination attempts on Dumbledore in the Half-Blood Prince? I'd love to hear your thoughts and theories. As always, please share your comments down below. And that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed learning a bit more about this dark arts artifact. If you enjoyed the content, please remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, then what's he doing in Borgin and Burke's? Browsing for furniture?